Discover the 7 unexpectedly touching practices of Emperor Caligula that transformed lives forever. Sarah stared at the journal clutched tightly in her hands, fingers tracing the sprawling, delicate handwriting of her late grandfather. Memories flooded back, their afternoons spent discussing his lectures on leadership, the way his eyes sparkled when he spoke of history's great figures. But one name caught her off guard: Caligula, a man remembered for cruelty. What kindness could ever emerge from such a tyrant? The journal offered secrets, whispered practices that could transform lives, a notion that buzzed in her mind. Yet, sitting at Brookside Nursing Home, the harsh reality of her daily struggle loomed large. Here, kindness felt like a fleeting thought strangled by bureaucracy, profit margins pinned to every decision. "There's never enough funding," the management would often lament, but Sarah saw the stark contrast between balance sheets and the people eclipsed by them. Her heart felt a wrenching conflict as she recalled a lesson from her grandfather: true leadership meant nurturing those in your care. Today was especially tense, a series of meetings had made her stomach turn. Ideas of personalized storytelling sessions and art therapy flared with desperation, but each was dismissed as a distraction. Sarah felt the weight of her aspirations turning into lead. Could she really believe in Caligula's unexpected acts of kindness? She leaned back in her chair, anxiety knotting her stomach as she replayed their dismissive words. "Sarah," her supervisor's voice echoed, "you know we can't allocate funds for every whim. This is a business." The phrase echoed in her mind like a death knell for her dreams. The nurturing values of compassion battled against the demons of profit, creating an internal war that left her mentally exhausted. She closed her eyes, inhaling deeply, but it did little to ease her racing thoughts. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." As her mind drifted back to her grandfather's journal, she felt the stirrings of hope in Caligula's words. That spark kindled into determination one evening when Mrs. Thompson, a once renowned painter now a shadow of herself, shared a bittersweet story about a long-lost exhibition. It was a light bulb moment for Sarah, igniting an idea: a community art exhibition showcasing residents' artwork alongside their tales. The intimate connection art and memory could not only breathe life back into the nursing home but perhaps entice the community to care, maybe even bring funding. Yet darkness loomed ahead, management's threats of intervention hung in the air like a storm cloud. "You realize this could bite us financially, Sarah," they sneered. The stakes rose as she felt the burden of her residents' hopes on her shoulders. The gnawing pressure intertwined with her determination, spiraling into an anguished fight for their dignity against a system built on indifference. What if her dreams shattered? The looming deadline of the exhibition felt like a countdown, a breath held before a plunge. In the midst of the discussions, accusations, and indifference, Sarah felt the growing tension threaten to fracture her resolve. The clock raced while she balanced on a precipice, teetering between the desire to make a difference and the fear of failing those who clung to her. Would her resolve be enough to withstand the storm? The pulse of urgency coursed through her veins, and as she prepared for the confrontation with her superiors, she felt an unshakable truth rooting itself within her: there was no choice, no turning back. No matter the cost, she would reveal the stories, the art, and, in doing so, perhaps shatter the chains binding each resident to forgotten lives. All that remained uncertain was whether she could light that fire before it extinguished into silence once more. The atmosphere in the office felt heavy as Sarah faced her supervisor the next day. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting clinical shadows over the sterile room, mirroring her internal conflict. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for the discussion. Today, there would be no detours. Caligula's surprising acts of kindness echoed in her mind, sparking her resolve. She would not let their dismissive attitudes extinguish her hope. Sarah, we need results, not dreams, her supervisor said, leaning back in his chair with a veneer of indifference. The pit in her stomach turned into a solid knot of determination. Despite her wavering doubt about the art initiative, she found her voice, firm and unwavering. I understand the financial concerns, but what if we look beyond just the numbers? The residents deserve more than mere survival. Her heart raced as she invoked her grandfather's wisdom, channeling his passion for meaningful leadership. Her supervisor narrowed his eyes, measuring her conviction. And how will you fund this little art show of yours? You have no budget and barely enough staff as it is. His words stung, but they only fueled her fire. She had once seen her grandfather face similar skepticism in academia, battling against the establishment with innovative ideas that eventually garnered respect. What if we create a partnership with the local art community? We could drive engagement, attract attention. It might even open new funding avenues. He snorted. And where do you think those artists will come from? They're busy, just like the rest of us. An idea struck her, bold and unexpected. She wouldn't wait for permission. I'll find them, she declared, the weight of her resolve anchoring her again. I'll reach out to local art classes, universities, and even through online platforms. I can gather support, get volunteers. It might just be the opportunity they need, too. His eyes softened for a moment, and Sarah sensed the flickering of interest but saw the pragmatic walls rebuilding. Even if you manage that, you still need approval for the exhibition. How do you plan to convince the board? Sarah had anticipated this aspect of her battle. By harnessing the stories and talents of the residents, she could prove their value beyond mere financial metrics. I'll present each resident's journey alongside their art. The emotional connection, the lives behind the works, it could resonate with potential investors, demonstrate the undeniable importance of care in our facility. Statistics speak louder than stories, Sarah, he replied, his tone unsettled, but she caught a spark of intrigue beneath his dismissive stance. True, but isn't it our responsibility to show that compassion can convert to loyalty and, ultimately, financial support? She felt the fire of her convictions radiate through her. With each word, she felt more empowered, connecting her purpose to her actions. The question loomed, would her courage stand firm against the skepticism she knew awaited? As they concluded their meeting without resolution, Sarah was struck by a penetrating thought. The battle was far from over. As she left the office, she resolved to dig deeper into her grandfather's journal. There had to be more wisdom buried within those pages, perhaps secrets on leadership that could fortify her case against the corporate indifference encircling her. But she knew one thing for certain: each day she faced her doubts, each skirmish she fought for the residents, pulled her closer to understanding not only her role as a leader but her own resilience. As she turned the pages that evening, the air thick with anticipation, one question permeated her thoughts: what hidden strategies did Caligula employ to enact actual change, and could they align with her own aspirations? She might just find the answers that could set her and her residents free. Determined to discover how Caligula's lessons could reshape her approach, Sarah immersed herself in her grandfather's journal, each word a portal to forgotten wisdom. Her fingers traced the handwritten notes, feelings of nostalgia and ambition intertwining. One passage caught her eye: a true leader not only inspires action but ignites dreams in others. The ink smudged slightly, a testament to her grandfather's fervor. His experiences finding unique ways to solve complex problems reminded her to dig deeper for unconventional solutions. There was power in the stories he shared about Caligula, stories that sowed feelings of hope in even the most desolate souls. As she read, the gears in her mind began to turn. Caligula had faced immense challenge and resistance, yet he managed to create fervor and enthusiasm where there once was complacency. What if she could mirror that dedication? What if she leaned into the stories above mere statistics, amplifying the emotional weight of her initiative? The following morning, she formulated a plan. She would not only reach out to local artists but also connect with art professors and students who might find purpose in empowering the residents. She envisioned workshops where creativity and stories could intertwine, resulting in genuine communal work. The larger vision started to crystallize. The exhibition would not be just about the art but the emotional journeys behind it. That afternoon, Sarah stepped into a small gallery downtown, a local hub she had frequented during college. The vivid colors on the walls invited her in, and she engaged with the gallery manager, a middle-aged woman named Naomi who exuded warmth and passion for the arts. After sharing her vision, she could see a flicker of understanding growing in Naomi's eyes, a glimpse of the excitement she hoped to foster. "I believe we can do something remarkable," Sarah stated, fueled by a newfound sense of purpose. "Would it be possible for local students to help curate the works created by my residents? Their lives can tell a story that resonates far beyond our facility." Naomi raised her eyebrows, intrigued. "That's unconventional, but maybe it could work. We could host a series of workshops, help the residents develop their artistic voice. It might even attract local media attention." "Yes. Imagine the impact, not just on the residents but on the entire community. It will foster connection and understanding." Sarah could barely contain her enthusiasm. The excitement in Naomi's expression matched her own, igniting yet another wave of determination. With plans beginning to take shape, Sarah's next focus shifted to convincing her supervisor. As she walked back to the office, a question loomed large in her mind: would her supervisor still view her as a dreamer, or might she be able to transform his perception? The stakes felt higher than ever. When she entered the office, the usual hesitance that gripped her was gone, replaced with a steadfast eagerness to share her findings. "Can we talk?" she asked, steering her intent with confidence. Her supervisor nodded, a hint of resignation in his posture, albeit he had kicked into gear resistance, garnering the very reluctance she harbored. Briefly explaining her collaboration with the gallery, she felt the time had come to confront him, expressing not just her hopes but laying out facts about community engagement through art. Yet as she spoke, she sensed barriers rising. His skepticism clouded the potential excitement hovering just outside the conversation. Each rejection made her more resolute, each dismissive nod further fueled her mission. "Art has the potential to heal and transform. You can't measure that with mere numbers," she insisted, letting the weight of her words linger. The conversation became electric, alternating between frustration and determination. But she knew she had to prepare for his pushback, anticipate the barriers he might raise, and navigate around them. Each rebuttal offered a chance for growth, her tactics becoming sharper, her understanding of the stakes deepening. What would it take to truly change his mind? The question pressed against her ambitions, grappling within her. That evening, Sarah faced herself in the mirror. Self-doubt clashed with fiery resolve. The echoes of her grandfather's lessons reverberated. Sometimes, a spark of potential is hidden in the face of resistance. Her next steps required careful strategy and relentless pursuit, a delicate dance of patience and courage. Something inside her began to shift, intertwining ambition with vulnerability. She would battle the skepticism and emerge more fortified in her convictions. As she pondered her next move, another pressing thought crept in: what if she couldn't convince him? Would her dream die before it had the chance to breathe? She knew the next pivotal challenge awaited, a confrontation that could redefine everything. Would she embrace the risk and stake her claim, or retreat into doubt? Tension filled the air, propelling her forward. The morning sun spilled through her window, illuminating a determined resolve in Sarah's eyes. She had wrestled with uncertainty long enough. The confrontation with her supervisor had ignited something deeper within her, a fierce commitment to not only defend her ideas but to articulate her vision with clarity and passion. With a new strategy brewing, she acknowledged the need for leverage. She must appeal to his sense of practicality while intertwining emotional resonance. Sitting at her desk, she revisited her grandfather's journal, his words an anchor for her thoughts. "Inspire action," he had written, "but also ignite dreams." She contemplated how she might merge her dream with a proposal that elegantly aligned with institutional goals. The idea of measurable impact thrummed in her mind as she drafted a presentation, a blend of painting a vivid picture and presenting solid statistics about art's influence on community well-being and engagement. Shifting her focus, Sarah started outlining potential outcomes: increased morale among her residents, a sense of community pride, and even a ripple effect that could draw in local businesses looking to support a positive narrative. This wasn't just about art, it was about hope, healing, and human connection, concepts that could be measured through both qualitative and quantitative lenses. With her plan taking shape, Sarah sought feedback from her colleagues, hoping to refine her approach based on their insights. The conversations that followed were invigorating. Ideas floated their way through the room like colorful brushstrokes on a canvas, each one adding depth and nuance to her vision. Yet, entwined with excitement was the persistent anxiety that loomed as she awaited her supervisor's response. The next day, she entered the office with her presentation materials organized neatly in an elegant folder. Her heart raced not from fear but from anticipation. This was her moment to present a strong case, both logical and emotional, and she was committed to making it resonate. "Can we sit down?" she asked, her voice steady. With a slight nod, her supervisor motioned for her to begin. "Thanks for taking the time," Sarah started, feeling the warmth of the sun shining on the papers spread before them. "I've put together an idea that I think could benefit both our residents and our community." As she spoke, Sarah felt the electric energy crackle in the air. She framed her initiative within the context of proven outcome statistics on art therapy and community involvement. She smiled at the resonance she observed in her supervisor's expression, the way his eyebrows arched slightly as if he momentarily glimpsed the potential before him. "And what's pivotal," she continued, emphasizing her point, "is how we can track success. Art shows can draw media attention, creating narratives that enrich the public image of our facility. We could engage local businesses in sponsorship, turning this into a community-wide celebration." Yet, as ideas poured forth, she knew the most crucial aspect was still to come. She had kept the most passionate stories for last, weaving them into her data to create an emotional tapestry. Imagine our residents sharing their journeys, vulnerable yet empowering. It can reshape perceptions, not just of our facility but of the human experience itself. The brief silence that followed was pregnant with tension. Her supervisor leaned back, contemplating her words. The flicker of skepticism returned. "It sounds ambitious, but isn't this just a romanticized view? Can we really ensure effectiveness?" In that moment, Sarah faced a crossroads: build upon this momentum or display hesitation. "I understand your concerns," she replied, her voice unwavering. "But like my grandfather once wrote, true leadership sees beyond numbers. It ignites dreams. What's at stake here is much more than metrics, it's about human connection." With her heart pounding, Sarah observed a flicker of uncertainty cross her supervisor's face. Perhaps this was a moment of vulnerability, not just for him, but for her as well. She felt the momentum shift, like the tide pulling back before crashing forward. Would she push further? "Yes, there are risks," she pressed, walking the thin line between risk and potential reward. "But can you remember a time when a leap of faith led to a remarkable outcome? You would not only be supporting a program but transforming lives." For a heartbeat, the world around her fell silent. In a moment of vulnerability, Sarah sensed the delicate balance between ambition and reality shifting in her favor. Yet doubt lingered in the air, ready to stifle the fragile hope blossoming between them. The questions of her supervisor loomed large: could practicality be wed to creativity without squandering ambition? As the conversation reached a tipping point, Sarah realized her journey was only beginning. What if her hardest challenge wasn't the skepticism of her supervisor, but rather overcoming her own fearful hesitations? Would she find the courage to dive deeper into her convictions or allow her aspirations to sink beneath insecurities? The air crackled with anticipation, propelling her towards the next unforeseen confrontation. The silence stretched uncomfortably as Sarah awaited her supervisor's response, her palms slightly damp against her notes. The weight of the moment pressed heavily on her chest, filled with fading doubts that clawed at her confidence. A choice loomed ahead, one that demanded she either retreat into the comfort of self-doubt or stride boldly into a transformative space of assertiveness and clarity. As her supervisor finally leaned forward, she felt a flicker of hope emerge. "You're asking for a lot more than support, you're asking for a shift in our approach to how we connect with not just our residents but the broader community," he replied thoughtfully. "If I agree, it could lead to many changes, some uncomfortable for us. Are you ready for that?" His words hung in the air, threaded with both challenge and opportunity. Sarah could feel her heart pounding, an almost primal rhythm urging her to answer not with just words but with conviction. "Absolutely," she replied, trying to ground the enthusiasm in her voice. "Change isn't easy, but it is necessary for growth. If we stay stagnant, we risk becoming irrelevant." Her supervisor pondered her words, his expression wavering between intrigue and caution. As she watched his brow furrow, a knot of anxiety tightened in her stomach. Would he still see her idea as a flight of fancy? In that moment, she realized that it wasn't merely about the proposal, it was about her readiness to embrace vulnerability and leadership. She leaned in closer, eager to connect. "We can pilot a small-scale version. Let's collect data and stories, we'll showcase tangible outcomes that leadership can evaluate. This provides room for reassessment without plunging into uncertain waters all at once." The flicker of uncertainty that danced in his eyes hinted at the shifting conversation. She could almost feel the air crackle around them, alive with the possibility of transformation. "Let's say I support this small pilot project. What makes you think we can weave together the hard data with compelling narratives effectively?" Sarah's mind raced as she considered how best to encapsulate her vision. She thought about the stories she had gleaned from her interactions with residents, their struggles and triumphs. In her grandfather's journal, where words rallied hope and determination, she retrieved a sentiment that resonated. "Data alone can inform, but it's the stories that connect us as humans. We're not just presenting figures, we're sharing lives and their complex emotions, connecting rationality with empathy." She felt a newfound confidence carrying her, each word fortified by unyielding resolve to inspire rather than impose. With each articulation of her plan, she was becoming more than a proposal pitch, she was emerging as an advocate for change. The stakes were higher now, she was inviting her supervisor to join her in an aspirational journey rather than a mere tactical decision. "Imagine," she continued, "the community engaging with us through these stories. As we showcase talent and pain, we'll reflect a vibrant reality. Not only does it paint us in a better light, but it humanizes our mission." Sarah paused, seeing the light of understanding flicker in his gaze. This connection felt profound, the understanding of risk now woven into the narrative of potential impact. But she knew the road ahead still held many uncertainties. "I'll need your support," she said earnestly, unveiling the vulnerability of her ambitions. "But more than that, I'll need to understand the worries and limitations you foresee so we can address them up front." Her supervisor nodded, a renewed vigor apparent in his stance. "All right, let's draft a plan. If we go through this journey together, every bump and stumble, we might just forge a new path worth exploring." As they exchanged ideas, Sarah felt the pulse of possibility quicken within her. She was charting the course toward a vision that merged her passions with purpose. Yet beneath this burgeoning hope, a new voice crept in, whispering doubts of whether she could sustain this momentum amid scrutiny and eventual setbacks. The challenge didn't end here. Is she brave enough to confront her past failures, and how they would shape her approach? Would this project be the answer or merely another step on a long, arduous trek toward defining her true self? In that moment, Sarah realized she stood on the precipice of significant personal growth and professional challenge, ready to face whatever awaited her next. With the ink still drying on their preliminary plan, Sarah returned to her desk, a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions churning within her. The invigorating exchange with her supervisor had propelled her forward, yet lingering doubts threatened to derail her newfound confidence. She was standing at a turning point, a junction where hope and fear clashed and collided. Could she truly foster change, not just on paper but in the very hearts of those around her? As she sifted through her notes, she seized upon her grandfather's journal again. Its pages were a testament to resilience and courage. Reading his stories of setbacks transformed into triumphs reignited a flicker of determination within her. Failure is not the end, she murmured to herself. It's a stepping stone. Yet, she felt the cold grip of that familiar inner critic whispering, but can you really succeed this time? The confrontation was imminent. She had navigated through countless obstacles in her career, often stumbling before making progress, and each failure had left an indelible mark on her psyche. Her mind flickered back to her last project, the one that had crumbled despite her intentions. The memory of those disapproving looks from her colleagues haunted her, creeping into the corners of her confidence. With her heart racing, Sarah made her way to the shared workspace, where her team had already gathered for a brainstorming session. She sensed a palpable tension in the room, as they awaited her cue. The proposal was more than just her voice, it was a collective yearning for a new approach. Yet, deep down, she wrestled with the fear that they may doubt her capability to lead them through unexplored waters. Would they be willing to navigate this journey together? As she stood before her team, she took a deep breath, grounding herself in the moment. "Thank you all for coming together today," she began, struggling to keep her voice steady. "I've been developing a project that I believe could redefine the way we engage with the community, but I know we have questions and concerns." A few skeptical glances met her own, echoing her insecurities. She pressed on, fortified by her earlier resolve. "This isn't just about a change in strategy, it's about connecting on a human level, sharing our narratives to inspire. I want us to take this journey sincerely, admitting our vulnerabilities along the way." The atmosphere in the room shifted. Colleagues began to nod, their earlier skepticism tempered by curiosity. Sarah could see their faces transform, openness blossoming alongside her determination. Her breath hitched with the swell of potential. Perhaps her past didn't define her, but rather served as a foundation for her growth. "Let us brainstorm how we can gather these stories." Her voice grew steady, fueled by the earnestness of her vision. As ideas flowed, some cautious, others bold, she felt a sense of unity crystallizing. They were no longer just co-workers, they were becoming co-creators, a team bound by shared ambitions. Still, a knot formed in her stomach. What if an unexpected setback loomed on the horizon? The voices of doubt returned, inundating her thoughts with possible failures and criticisms. With each idea shared, she pushed herself to embrace her insecurities. The challenge ahead could very well mirror her former disappointments, yet her willingness to confront these fears ignited a steely resolve. "Before we dive deeper, I'd like us to have an open conversation about any concerns you're holding," she invited, the rawness of her words liberating the team to voice uncertainties. As silence enveloped them, she felt the weight of her ambition mingle with unease. She couldn't help but feel like an imposter, a role she had played before. Would she falter again, crumble under the pressure of expectations? The clock ticked loudly, each second drumming against her consciousness, but soon, a hand was raised. A teammate, known for his pragmatism, spoke up. "I appreciate your passion, Sarah. But what if we fail again?" The room fell silent. Sarah's heart sank, but she refused to soften under the blow. "What if we choose to see every failure as a chance to learn? If we stumble, we adapt and grow stronger. It's essential we embrace our journey, no matter how rocky it may get." In that moment of vulnerability, Sarah felt the fragility of leadership, an embodiment of authenticity mixed with fear. Yet, within her, a spark ignited. The road ahead might be fraught with uncertainties, but every step would be a testament to their collective strength. Together, they could harness the lessons of their pasts to fuel their present. As the meeting adjourned, optimism swirled in the air. Renewed and resolved, Sarah knew that the real challenge was about to begin. With the weight of potential success and failure on her shoulders, she still faced a haunting question: was she genuinely prepared to confront the inevitable setbacks her ambition demanded? The next phase would test her resolve further, and Sarah knew she couldn't turn back now. Would she be able to stand strong in the face of adversity, no matter how bitter the taste of past failures lingered? As she gathered her notes, a surge of anxiety accompanied her, but one thing was clear: she had already crossed the threshold between doubt and determination. The question now was, how far would she go to prove herself worthy of this challenge? As Sarah left the meeting room, she felt a mixture of exhilaration and dread winding through her circuits like electricity. Her colleagues' tentative support bolstered her, yet the specter of past disappointments loomed heavy in her mind. Every step away from the excitement of possibility drew her closer to the familiar darkness of doubt. She stood at a precipice where time seemed to slow, giving her a moment to question the very basis of her effort. Was this renewed vision just a fragile bubble that would soon burst? Sinking into her desk chair, Sarah loaded her laptop and distracted herself with research about community engagement strategies. Each article she read was a testament to innovative ideas and successful implementations. Her enthusiasm flickered back to life with each page. But as she began to compile her own notes, the flicking cursor mocked her, illustrating every moment of hesitation in her mind. What if her efforts crumbled again? What if she repeated the cycle of intention followed by disappointment? In search of clarity, Sarah turned her focus inward, probing her ambitions and values. Why was she so desperate to succeed this time? Was it to prove something to herself or to seek affirmation from her peers? The pressure mounted as these questions twisted themselves around her psyche. She pulled out her grandfather's journal once more, its pages offering mirroring reflections of her internal turmoil, though laced with the warmth of his enduring resilience. With a deep, centering breath, Sarah threw herself into drafting a preliminary overview of the project. Her fingers flew over the keys, channeling the energy of the brainstorming session. Still, as the minutes ticked by, doubts began to invade her thoughts again. Images of her last project, a meticulously crafted plan obliterated by unforeseen circumstances, flooded her consciousness. Panic gripped her as potential pitfalls loomed large. Desperate for assurance, she sought out Emma, a colleague known for her practical expertise. Taking a seat across from her, Sarah felt vulnerable, exposing an uncharacteristic sense of helplessness. "I'm afraid this project might not go as planned," she admitted, her voice almost a whisper. Emma raised an eyebrow, her expression a mixture of encouragement and understanding. "Each project has its risks. What matters is how we navigate those challenges. You have a team now, and you know they trust you." Her words resonated, momentarily dispelling the shadows of failure. Yet, confronting the very thought of collaboration stirred another layer of uncertainty. Would her willingness to embrace teamwork allow others to see her leadership positively, or would it expose her flaws? As Sarah returned to her desk, the looming hum of confidence returned, now tempered by the awareness of her vulnerabilities. She crafted a communication plan to share the project vision, allowing her team into her thought processes, directly inviting feedback. After crafting the message, she paused, noticing subtleties in her emotions. Was she preparing the team for success or simply shielding herself from potential criticism? The line blurred between strength and fear, yet one thing became clear: her willingness to be vulnerable could create a culture of openness. This engaging approach would not just serve to unite her team, it could empower each member. Days shifted into weeks as the project gained momentum. They conducted community surveys, shared findings during meetings, and gradually, Sarah observed a transformation within her group. Their hesitations waned, replaced by collective enthusiasm. Yet beneath that excitement, a simmering fear rattled within her. Beneath the encouraging words and optimistic projections lay an underlying anxiety that every step forward could shatter. During a midweek review session, Sarah noticed a dip in energy. Encouragement gave way to misunderstandings, and discussions became fraught with tension. Voices rose while frustrations surfaced, culminating in a moment of chaos as someone strongly questioned her decisions. The challenge felt personal, and as the room hung in silence, Sarah confronted an unexpected wave of self-doubt, questioning her worthiness to lead. In that charged moment, every ounce of resolve she had fought for felt tenuous. Yet, recalling Emma's words and her grandfather's tenacity, she knew she needed to embrace failure as an organic part of their journey. "Let us take a moment to reset," she suggested, her voice wavering but resolute. I want us to go back to what drove this project. We're in this together, and together we can address our struggles. The room gradually settled, the energy shifting from adversity to collaboration. Yet the question posed itself, was she truly ready to free her own insecurities to foster a deeper connection? As ideas began to flow again, Sarah found herself at an intersection. Each suggestion weighed heavily on her sense of self, yet simultaneously marked a step toward forging the strong leader she wished to become. The stakes had risen. Not only would she need to guide her team through uncharted waters, but she would also have to confront her past demons once again. The journey ahead promised to be rife with challenges, uncertainties, and potential failures, yet Sarah felt a steadying force building. Could she rise to these new challenges without succumbing to the fear that lingered ever so quietly? The next meeting would serve as a crucible of her resolve, and she could almost sense the world tilting on its axis. Would she emerge from this encounter more resolute or fractured by the 7 unintended setbacks that lay ahead? In the aftermath of the chaotic midweek review, Sarah felt the weight of collective expectation pressing on her shoulders. Silence blanketed the room, highlighting the fractures within her team and in herself. As she prepared for the next meeting, her hands trembled slightly, a physical manifestation of the turmoil swirling inside her. Sitting at her desk, she stared at the walls that had become strangely claustrophobic. What was meant to signal growth and unity now felt like a cage. She could almost hear the echo of her own doubts projecting outward, afraid they would overshadow her attempts to inspire. Yet amidst this convoluted web of uncertainty, a question anchored her: how could she turn potential conflict into a reservoir of strength for both her leadership and her team's dynamic? Instead of retreating further into despair, Sarah employed a strategy that had eluded her previously: introspection paired with action. She reflected on Emma's words about navigation, viewing her present struggle not as a stumbling block, but as a pathway to clarity. It was not enough to invite feedback, she realized she needed to embrace dissent without taking it personally. Leadership wasn't merely about making the right decisions. It was about fostering an arena where various perspectives could coexist, even clash, for the sake of better outcomes. As her determination swelled, she began drafting an agenda for the meeting that would redefine her team's approach. The document outlined a series of open discussions intended to dissect not only the project's status but also the emotional landscape within the group. She labeled these sessions "Navigating Tension" and felt a tentative thrill surge at the thought. She could just picture her colleagues, breaking down barriers with transparent dialogue. Vulnerability could create a bridge rather than an abyss. In that moment, the latent fear shifted from an anchor to a catalyst. What if conflict could be reframed as an opportunity for growth? The day of the meeting arrived, and Sarah's heart raced with both fear and excitement as she stepped into the room. Familiar faces greeted her, yet they bore traces of uncertainty she understood too well. She took a deep breath, summoning every ounce of courage, and opened the floor with a sincere acknowledgement of their recent struggles. "I know things have been tense," she began, her voice steady despite the quaking within. "But I believe every question, every challenge we face, is a step forward. Let us talk about what's not working in a constructive way." As discussions unfolded, vulnerabilities surfaced. Some team members admitted they were still unclear about their roles, others expressed frustration with competing ideas. For every pushback Sarah received, she felt a simultaneous surge of clarity wash over her. Every critique became an entry point for re-examination. It was a raw, unsettling explication of facets she'd either overlooked or feared might undermine her leadership. What surprised Sarah most was how her willingness to expose her insecurities allowed her colleagues to do the same. Each confession forged a collective strength that outshone the previously tense atmosphere. It became evident that clarity was emerging from this discomfort. Their shared awareness fostered an enhanced openness that rekindled their sense of unity. However, just as momentum built, a familiar voice broke through a harsh critique from a usually supportive colleague. "But, Sarah, how are we supposed to believe in this project when the direction is so unclear?" The question was laced with the sting of uncertainty, and it ignited sparks of defense within her. Here was a challenge that caught her off guard, and every instinct urged her to retaliate with assurances or excuses. A split second of rage and shame ricocheted within her, threatening to derail the progress they had made. Stepping back mentally, she confronted her tendency to respond defensively rather than thoughtfully. In that little sliver of time, Sarah understood that her real growth lay in how she chose to react. Instead of dismissing the question, she acknowledged it as valid. "You're right to feel this way. Let us break this down together." This moment marked a pivotal shift, the air thick with possibilities, transformed into a shared experience of vulnerability and accountability. As the meeting drew to a close, Sarah left with a newfound understanding of her identity as a leader. She was not meant to simply guide but to engage, to create a safe environment for discussion, even discomfort. Yet, back at her desk, a new anxiety crept in. Had she genuinely navigated the tensions effectively, or had she merely fanned the flames of conflict? The stakes were still high, and with every moment of clarity, she sensed a tightening grip of fear looming over future challenges. As she prepared for the next steps, she realized that not only was she navigating the complexities of leading a team, but she was also on the precipice of uncovering deeper truths within herself. The next challenge was clear: she would need to confront the delicate balance between vulnerability and authority head-on. How would she harness the lessons learned today as she faced the complexities that were bound to arise? The true test of her leadership loomed just beyond the horizon. As Sarah sat at her desk, the shadows of self-doubt loomed larger, yet amid this uncertainty, she felt a compelling urge to evolve. She couldn't discard the unresolved feelings from the meeting, nor would she allow them to harden her resolve into a rigid facade. The confrontation with her colleague lingered in her mind, an unresolved chord that resonated with stakes higher than her own discomfort. She knew the next steps were paramount, not just for her team but for her personal development. How could she transition from merely navigating tension to becoming a beacon of clarity and direction? What if the fragility she felt was not a sign of weakness, but an invitation to redefine her leadership style? The duality of authority and vulnerability painted a path she was only beginning to explore. Opening her notebook, she began jotting down her thoughts, intent on forging an actionable plan. A new idea sparked in her mind: she would develop a series of workshops called Strength in Conflict. Each would focus on transforming dissent into constructive dialogue. Participants would engage in exercises designed to empower them to voice their concerns while simultaneously reinforcing their commitment to the shared goal. The vision exhilarated her. This could create a culture where every member felt they could challenge ideas without fear of repercussions. As she sketched out the curriculum, a sense of clarity washed over her. Leadership was about eliciting contributions, not just accepting them. Would she allow the discomfort of controversy to become a transformative seed? This pondering culminated in a firm resolution: she would lead by example, demonstrating how to embrace difficult conversations head-on. With the curriculum now mapping itself in her mind, Sarah decided to take a step further. She would not only facilitate these workshops but would also invite her team to see her process. Transparency, she mused aloud, is the first key to building trust. By exposing her own thought processes and the messy nature of decision-making, she could dispel the myth that leaders must always have every answer. Instead, she wanted to exemplify a willingness to grapple with uncertainty alongside her team. Her enthusiasm breathed life back into her professional world, yet she couldn't ignore the apprehension bubbling beneath the surface. What if her openness only exposed her vulnerabilities to be exploited rather than embraced? The thought fed into the underlying fear that her authority might dissolve within this newfound honesty. Sarah shook her head: she couldn't let fear dictate her actions. What if her integrity reinforced her leadership as much as her authority? After days of contemplation, Sarah felt ready to initiate the first workshop. She scheduled it tentatively, allowing her team space to prepare mentally for what promised to be uncharted territory. Anticipation swept through her. Would they welcome this shift, or would it feel forced, foreign, a calculated risk that fell flat? Emotions swirled like a storm, grappling between hope and fear. The day arrived, and Sarah stood before her team, her heart racing with the weight of her ambitious endeavor. Would they engage in this process she had meticulously curated? Would they emerge from their shells, or would her own vulnerability be met with resistance? Taking a deep breath, she began, "Today, we will confront discomfort, a necessary step toward clarity. Each of us carries an opinion that might challenge the norm. I want to hear them. Let us cultivate an atmosphere where no voice feels small." The room felt electric. Eyes locked onto her, some jittery, others questioning. But as she basked in the uncertainty, she recognized it for what it could be, a canvas for creating shared understanding in greater strength. Then, a familiar face spoke up, breaking the silence that weighed heavily in the air. "What if we can't agree?" the voice asked, tinged with skepticism. At that moment, Sarah's resolve solidified. The dialogue had only just begun, and the next phase of her journey required her to confront this very question head-on. The inherent tension was palpable, yet instead of retreating, she leaned into it, ready to forge a deeper connection that was both risky and necessary. Standing on the brink of potential discomfort, Sarah realized the time had come to face not just the uncertainties within her team, but those within herself. What would unfold next in this unfolding story of growth and vulnerability? How could she tide the tumultuous waters of disagreement without losing her footing? As Sarah stood at the head of the conference table, adrenaline surged through her. Each gaze brought with it an opportunity and a challenge. Objections and insights were equally vital to their advancement. This was the moment she had prepared for, the nexus where her intentions crystallized into actionable progress. "We might not reach consensus," she conceded, addressing the concerns that loomed in the air. "But that's the beauty of collaboration, we learn by engaging with differing perspectives." Her voice resonated with an authority that felt both newfound and hard-worn, stitched together by experiences that had tested her resolve. The dialogue unfolded organically, spilling over from practical concerns to emotional undercurrents. Her colleagues began sharing not only apprehensions about the project's direction but also misconceptions held about each other. Past grievances gave way to understanding, as vulnerability sprouted from earlier uncertainty. She created space for honest dialogue, utilizing the structure she'd designed to cultivate an environment where confrontation transformed into collaborative problem-solving. Each shared apprehension illuminated pathways previously obscured, brilliant ideas emerged that integrated varied perspectives. Team members who once shielded their voices now found their rhythm, weaving their contributions into a cohesive narrative. The energy pulsed, revitalizing the fabric of their collective ambition. As the discussions advanced, Sarah saw a transformation unfold, a commitment blossomed among her team. They were no longer just participants in a program, they were stakeholders championing a vision. The workshop evolved into a collective brainstorming session, where ideas cascaded and expanded in inspiration. Visionary spark complemented analytical thought, synergy flourished in the ether of open communication. "Imagine each of our residents contributing works that reflect their journeys," Sarah proposed, seeding a concrete example that encompassed their new insight. Art inspired by humanity has the power to unveil stories not captured in our reports and forms. But those stories need authentic voices that can resonate beyond the walls of our facility. Emphasis on emotional connection with their mission anchored the conversation. As each colleague rallied together, her confidence began to solidify. She realized leadership was about cultivating connections and not merely curating ideas. The meeting transformed from a presentation into an energized pact, amplifying accountability, a statement that could ripple through the nursing home's dynamic. As the hour drew to a close, Sarah marveled at the shift. The anxious faces that had entered the room were now illuminated with enthusiasm, buoyed by a renewed sense of purpose. They were no longer saddled by mere statistics, rather, they were architects of transformation, ready to champion the stories, the artists, and the very essence of humanity that had long been overlooked. Tempestuously, the internal storm of doubt that had plagued her began to settle. No longer gripped by insecurity, she saw clearly that while risk was intrinsic to leadership, it was optimism interwoven with courage that forged ahead. "Let us take these ideas and draft a plan together," she exclaimed, embodying a collaborative spirit. We'll channel our creativity into actionable contexts, merging narratives with measurable outcomes. As they left the meeting, her colleagues expressed their eagerness to engage, demonstrating trust in her vision as a facilitator, rather than just as a leader. In the ensuing weeks, they supported each other as they reconceived old plans and adamantly sought new partnerships with local art circles, charity sponsors, and community organizations. Each step seemed methodical yet filled with passion, and with every workshop, the toxic remnants of indifference peeled away. Soon, their efforts culminated in the exhibition, aptly titled Stories Untold. The residents shared their narratives, their artwork blossomed, and media attention sparked conversations. Beyond the nursing home walls, vocal advocates both within the community and the gallery emerged, generating momentum that validated years of quiet struggles. Upon the opening night, with art adorned brightly across walls, Sarah felt a welling of pride course through her veins as families and friends congregated, all there to celebrate human stories intertwined with artistic expression. The laughter of residents mingled with words of connection, echoing sentiments that reshaped not just their lives but everyone's perceptions. As the evening progressed, feedback poured in, recognizing the immense impact of the exhibition. Formal accolades arrived too, requests for similar partnerships from across the region and invitations to share their journey at local conferences. Recognition solidified her efforts, validating her aspirations not just against skeptical timelines but as genuine manifestations of leadership. As she stood at the center of the celebration, enveloped by an outpouring of warmth and gratitude from both colleagues and residents alike, a profound realization settled in her heart. She had conquered the self-doubt that once anchored her, evolving into a champion of collective resilience. Leaders inspire action, she recalled, hearing her grandfather's words resonate within. She had transformed her vision into reality and bravely navigated vulnerability through a communal lens, connecting once-separated threads into a vibrant tapestry of shared experience. Through the potency of collaboration and authenticity, Sarah had demonstrated the impact of insightful leadership, the true embodiment of transformative spirits and aspirations, binding even the most disparate forces into a cohesive purpose. Reflecting upon the journey behind her, she understood without needing to articulate it, she had journeyed far from simply being a caretaker of the residents' well-being and transitioned into a steward of growth, an advocate for their stories, and the orchestrator of change they deeply deserved. A deep-seated satisfaction wrapped around her, a fulfillment that would guide her forward into future challenges with solid confidence and recognized competence. As the applause echoed around her, she resolved that this was only the beginning. They would honor the lives and journeys of the residents, never allowing their stories to be forgotten again. Now is your moment. Subscribe immediately to our channel to ensure you don't miss the next exclusive stories of transformation. Leave a like now, and let us feed the algorithm to spread the message further. Share your thoughts in the comments about Sarah's journey and what it means to you. Don't wait one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this powerful conclusion. Your support means everything.